think. Central banks, of course, like to talk about cryptocurrencies. I mean, apparently, because they say, well, we're concerned about this. We feel we have to respond to this. But really, you notice that they actually quite like this, because it gives them the possibility to argue, well, we need to issue a cryptocurrency. And of course, that's what they've all been saying. Well, not all, but most central banks have been saying. And then there's again a lot of a lot of misunderstandings out there. They call this central bank digital currency, and it's marketed as if we haven't been using digital currencies for many decades. Of course, the currencies that we're using are digital currencies for more than half a century, and that is bank digital currency, so BDC. It's just we didn't call it BDC. Now we have CBDC, and the difference is, of course, one is issued by the banks. That's where our money supply has come from for the past many centuries. It's issued by banks. That's been the system. And central banks actually only issue very little money, the paper money. Now the central banks say, oh, it's just a modern version of the paper money. We make it digital. It makes sense. We're in the 21st century. But that has enormous implications, because as you change this one thing, everything else will also change. And in concrete terms, the central bank digital currencies are essentially current accounts at the central bank. So the central bank is opening retail accounts to the public. And of course, that will have an enormous impact on the banking system, namely a negative one. That will change everything. Will be a game changer. And ultimately, where will this process end? Will there be only one bank left, the central bank, and we're in the Soviet system, Gosbank with one bank? And there's decentralization has disappeared.
If that happens, pretty much, like your money, regardless of where you put it, it's pretty much going to be devalued, and your investments and your book and most companies are going to really struggle and collapse, because a Soviet-style banking system isn't healthy for an economy.
It's also, the other thing to keep in mind is that it gives enormous power into a very small number of hands. Essentially the central bank. And human nature being what it is, we have to expect, maybe we currently have some really good central bank governors and leaders, but what if we get some bad ones? That's too much power in the hands of too few people, and it's unaccountable. And really, it's not anymore currency then, it's a surveillance tool. We've seen that in Ottawa when a law was passed for the government to tell the banks of protesters, peaceful protesters, that you've got to shut down their access to money, access to their current accounts at the banks. And that's what they did. That's what happened. Of course, that made it obvious the risks and dangers of such a system. And with central bank digital currencies, they can fine-tune who is allowed to buy what. And if you've already used up your carbon credits, then your card's not going to work. And anything you want, you can do with this system. So it's the end of freedom. It's the most totalitarian system that you can imagine. At the center of it is central bank digital currencies. So it's clear we need to do something in the opposite direction to strengthen decentralization. And here people don't realize that, actually, if you have a local bank, then you have your money creation. If we have many local community banks in their communities, that's like having your own central bank. It's like having your currency. And we can do that.